Well, you'll excuse me, I'm going for a swim. It's beautiful. Well, let me just thank all of you for coming out, and I want to introduce everybody to someone I think you all already know, the brains in the family, my wife, Jane.
Hi. Really glad to be here. This is beautiful.
Last night, we had a wonderful time. You know, in the middle of a campaign, a family doesn't have the opportunity to get together all that often. And we were at the Field of Dreams. Any of you guys have been there? It is, you know, and I remember Kevin Costner was talking to his father there, and the father walks up and looks around and says, "Is this heaven?" And he says, "If we can work on the mic here, please, get a little bit louder." And Kevin Costner says, "No, it's Iowa." And last night it really did. You know, my state of Vermont, and we want all of you to visit us, is just incredibly beautiful as well. But being in that Field of Dreams and being surrounded by the cornfields, the sunset, beautiful, beautiful sunset, and we had two of my sons there, and my grandson, who turned out to be the best ball player we had at 8 years of age. It was a wonderful evening, and it's great to be here in this beautiful community as well. I just want to say a few things this morning. I don't have to tell anybody here that we are living in a dangerous and unprecedented moment in American history. We have a president who, I don't know how to describe this, who every day, you know, we turn on the television and people all over America, Jay, why don't you hold this, say, "I can't believe this guy just said that." And then the next day you forget about what he said the day before, because what he said is even more outrageous. And what I think, and I know that Donald Trump won Iowa last time, but what I think is that increasingly people all over this country, whether you're conservative, progressive, moderate, whatever you may be, understand that we have to have a president who, when we turn on the TV and the kids are watching, is not somebody who embarrasses our country, not somebody who is a pathological liar. You know, I think it may well be the case, in fairness to Donald Trump, that he really does not know the difference between lying, lies and the truth, because he has been documented, I think, for now having told some 10,000 lies since his campaign began. And that is an embarrassment to what this country stands for, and it's not good for our children, to be honest with you. We can have disagreements amongst ourselves on health care and education, whatever it may be, but at least when somebody who is in the White House talks to us, we have to at least, pretty low bar, believe that he is telling the truth. So, and then on top of that, and I have conservative friends in the Senate, you know, people I respect, I disagree with. But what I think every president in recent history has understood is that when you get into the Oval Office, what your job is to bring the American people together, not divide them up. And we have a president, and I'm confident that he is wrong. He thinks he's going to win re-election by dividing us up based on the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our religion, or our sexual orientation. I don't think he's going to succeed in that. And I have a real surprise for Donald Trump. We are going to defeat him because we're doing exactly the opposite. We're going to bring people together as Americans. And I take particular offense, if I may say so, about his attack on immigrants, because I am the son of an immigrant. My father came to this country without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak English, and had very little education. Exactly the kind of person Donald Trump does not want to come to this country. But my father never made any money, grew up in a working class home, but he was the proudest American that anybody ever knew, because he knew the opportunity that America gave him to raise 2 kids and have a marriage. And that is the story of tens of millions of Americans. So we will not allow Donald Trump to demonize the immigrant community. We are going to move forward to comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. Now, I don't know what Trump talks about. I just came from Storm Lake, and I'm told that 90% of the children in school there are children of color, many of them children of immigrants. What does Trump think the economy in America would look like if you got rid of all of the undocumented people? I have no idea if he has a clue about what he is talking about. Okay, excuse me. I think we have a medical emergency then, do we? Yeah, okay, let's take a moment. Gentleman who is not well. People sitting out in the sun, please be careful. You know, that sun beating down on your head is not a good thing. So please, people feel hot, get some water and get out of the sun if you can. All right. But there you go. And he spoke, and the clouds appeared. I know. And the next thing that will happen, a little bird will come up on my arm, and the fish will jump out of the sea. And our opponents will be very nervous. But, you know, the time is long overdue for us to be peddling hatred and divisiveness. And we got to bring our people together around an agenda of compassion and love and understanding. And that's one of the things that I intend to do as President of the United States. But beating Trump is not all that we have to do. What we have to do is to understand that in America today, there are many, many, many millions of people who are hurting. And for too often, the Congress, the media, has ignored the pain and the struggle of those people. And this campaign and my presidency will not ignore that reality. And in fact, one of the reasons that Donald Trump won the electoral vote last time is because he spoke to some of that pain. Now, he lied all of the time, but he recognized the pain of a working class in this country, which is in decline. He talked about the needs of people who saw their jobs go to China and Mexico. And 4 or 5 million jobs did, in fact, do that. So we are going to focus on the needs of working people. And I want to talk about a little bit what those needs are. And I want to ask people to think big and not small, because very often the Congress and the media makes us think in little ways. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. So I want you to think about why it is that we're not doing what we should be doing. And let me start with the littlest kids. In America today, amidst massive income and wealth inequality, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We have a dysfunctional child care system at a time when psychologists tell us that 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development. And yet we have child care workers who make less than McDonald's workers. We have little children sitting in front of stupid television programs all day long. So one of the things when we think about rebuilding an economy that works for all, pay attention to the children. We will go forward with universal, high-quality, affordable child care, and we will, when we transform this country, redefine what jobs are important, what jobs are meaningful. You got 25 hedge fund managers today God knows what they do to make their fortunes, who now earn twice as much, 25 hedge fund managers, twice as much money as all of the kindergarten teachers in America combined. 140,000 kindergarten teachers, 25 hedge fund managers make twice what the kindergarten teachers make. Does that make sense to anybody? All right. Those are the kinds of things we have to change. If we can give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% under Trump, you know what we could do? We could have high-quality, affordable child care with well-paid child care teachers. Number two, we're going to rebuild our public education system and put money into those schools that need them the most. When you talk about the future of America, you know what group of people are doing some of the most important work out there? Our teachers. How about respecting and honoring and appreciating our teachers? And that is why we're going to triple funding for Title I funds, the Title I schools. We're going to make certain that no child in America goes hungry, and working with the states, we're going to make sure that every teacher in America makes at least $60,000 a year. All right? We should not have teachers working 2 or 3 jobs. We should not have hundreds of thousands of teachers leaving the profession. We should not have teachers taking money out of their own pockets in order to buy the supplies that their kids need in the classroom. But then when you talk about education, you got to go further than that. When I came to Iowa 4 years ago, and I said, you know, maybe we want to make public colleges and universities tuition free. People said, well, Bernie, that's utopian thinking. Pie in the sky, it can't happen. 4 years have come and gone. In California, in New York, in Tennessee, there's a strong movement, and in other communities around this country, to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Why is that? Because in a highly competitive global economy, if we want our young people to go out and get the good jobs that are there, they need a higher education. There are millions of kids who are good with their hands, who are not going to go to a traditional college. They need the training to get the jobs as carpenters and automobile mechanics and sheet metal workers, which will pay them a strong middle-class wage. So we need to rethink education. And in my view, every American, and not just young people, a lot of people want to go back to school. They need new training. They lost their jobs. Every American in this country should have the right to all of the education that they need without out-of-pocket expense, and get that quality education which allows them to fulfill the dreams they have for their future. So we're going to make public colleges and universities and trade schools tuition free, and then we're going to do something else. We have punished an entire generation of younger people in this country. We said, go to college, get an education, and they did. And they come out of school $50,000, $100,000, go to graduate school, $200,000, $300,000 in debt. That is simply not fair to those people who today are not getting married, they're not having kids, they're not buying a home, they're not buying a car. We're going to cancel all student debt in this country and give that generation an opportunity to go forward. Now you say, now you're sitting there and say, well, that sounds great. How's he going to pay for this? And I will tell you exactly how we're going to pay for this. 11 years ago, you all remember that we bailed out the crooks on Wall Street who destroyed this economy. Remember that? Well, we're going to ask Wall Street to pay a modest tax on speculation, which will more than cover canceling all student debt and making public colleges and universities tuition free. That's how we're going to pay for it. 4 years ago, I came here to Iowa and I said, you know what? If you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. And God knows how many people in Iowa today are making $9, $10 an hour, $11 an hour. I talk to them every day. You can't take care of a family. You can barely take care of yourself on $10, $11 an hour. 4 years ago, I talked about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. People said, too wild, too crazy, can't be done. And I want you to know, because workers all over this country have stood up and fought back, 7 states have already passed $15 an hour minimum wage bills. And a month ago, U.S. House of Representatives voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And I need you here in Iowa to tell Senators Grassley and Ernst to end this business of people in this state making $9, $10 an hour. Have them support my legislation of $15 an hour. And there's another issue out there. 4 years ago, came to the state, and I said, you know, maybe, just maybe, the United States of America should do what every other major country on earth does and guarantee health care to all people as a human right, not a privilege. 4 years ago, that seemed like a radical idea. Today, poll after poll after poll shows that a majority of the American people now support a Medicare for all single-payer system. And as President of the United States, that is exactly the health care system that I will implement. And let me say a word on that. Okay, I need a minute on this one, because the opposition is going to spend an endless amount of money. All right? Let me take 2 minutes, and I'm going to ask your help on this. I need you to help me understand what people in Iowa are going through. All right. Fact number one, and please don't forget this one, because this is the most important fact. People say, well, Bernie, it's a great idea. You want to cover health care for everybody. You want to expand health care benefits. Your Medicare for all is going to cover dental care. It's going to cover hearing aids, going to cover eyeglasses. You're going to cut the cost of prescription drugs. How the hell are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this great program? And the answer is we are already paying for it. All right? Now, look, if you go out to a car dealer and you buy a car for $300, you don't expect much, right? You're lucky if it has tires and a windshield. All right, you say, all right, that's what I got. I only paid a few bucks for a car. It's not a good car. In America today, we are spending almost $11,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country on health care. That is double what the people of any other industrialized country are spending. Let me repeat it in case I am not loud enough. I think I'm pretty loud. In the United States of America today, we are spending twice as much per person as the Canadians, as the French, as the British, as the Germans, as the people in Scandinavia. We spend twice as much, and yet they manage to provide health care for all of their people. Now, you don't hear that discussed in the media terribly often. But why is that? How come we spend twice as much as do the people of any other country? What is the function? Think about it for 1 second. What is the function of the healthcare system in America today? Who knows the answer? The answer is, and what I'm hearing here, is profit. So I want to give you the good news for all of you who are CEOs of major insurance companies. Probably not here today. Probably not. Here is the news, and I want you to hear this. Please hear it carefully. Today, 87 million Americans, including people in this gathering, are either uninsured or underinsured with high premiums, high deductibles, high co-payments, and are spending much more than they can afford out of pocket. That's the reality. 87 million Americans in that position. 30,000 people a year die because they don't get to a doctor when they should. And by the time they walk into the doctor's office, the doctor said, you should have been here a year ago. You're really ill. Some of them don't make it. And here's another fact that we don't talk about enough. In America today, over 500,000 people a year go bankrupt because they cannot afford to pay their medical bills. Think about that one for a moment. They go bankrupt for what reason? What crime did they commit? What irresponsibility? Did they go to Las Vegas and blow their life savings? No. They came down with cancer. They came down with heart disease. They had a serious illness. They mounted up medical bills. They could not afford that. So because they came down with cancer, or a family member came down with Alzheimer's, or somebody had a serious heart disease, they go bankrupt. In the year 2019, in a democratic, civilized society, 500,000 people should not be pushed into financial disaster because they suffered a serious illness. That is inhumane, that is obscene, and together we will end that. So that is the system that you have right now. The healthcare industry, in the midst of all of that, that's the bad news. Now I want to give you the good news. For all of you who are CEOs of the insurance company or drug companies, you had a great year last year. Not if you're one of the 500,000 people who go bankrupt, not if you're one of the 30,000 people who died. But last year, the healthcare industry, just the drug companies and the insurance companies alone, made over $100 billion in profit. So when I tell you that we spend twice as much per capita as the people of other countries, the answer as to why is a simple one. We have a healthcare system designed to make billions in profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies, and we intend to change that because the function of healthcare should be to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, not make a handful of billionaires even richer. That's what Medicare for All is about. All right. So how do we implement it? What's the problem? Problem is that in an industry which last year made $100 billion, all they have to do is take 1% of their profits. That's $1 billion. They put it into television ads and radio ads and magazine ads, and they buy think tanks who will tell you everything that Bernie Sanders said is crazy. That's what you could do when you spend hundreds of millions or $1 billion in opposition to Medicare for All. That's what we're up against. All right, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to beat them because the American people understand the dysfunctionality of the current system. Now, what do? How do we implement this program? It is very, very simple. Right now, Medicare eligibility is at the age of 65. We're going to lower it in the first year to 55. Second year to 45. Third year to 35. And fourth year, everybody is in. That is about it. Ain't too complicated. It's not a 10-year program. It is not a very complicated program at all. It is comprehensive health care. It will have, and in this sense, we're doing simply what our Canadian neighbors are doing. And what it is, and please hear this, when you go to the doctor, you don't take out your wallet. You walk into the doctor's office. No co-payments. You're not paying any premiums. Basically, how are you going to pay for it? And I want to hear from you. No premiums. They're gone. No co-payments. No deductibles. No out-of-pocket expenses. All right? We pay for it out of the general tax base. Just talked to a gentleman a few hours ago. I think he was telling me that he had a $1,200 a month premium, and then he had a $4,000 deductible before insurance kicked in. Does that sound about right? All right? All that's gone. You will pay more in taxes. But the overwhelming majority of the American people will pay less in taxes than they're now paying when you add up premiums, co-payments, and out-of-pocket expenses. All right? And the care will be comprehensive. All right. What I want to do is to take a moment. Do we have a mic, Misty? Okay, there's Misty. Do we have a... I want somebody, just come up, not somebody, but anybody wants to raise their hand. Talk about your healthcare experience. Talk about what it costs you right now, what you're getting. I see a woman over there, way on the right. Misty?
Going.
Okay, great. Give her the mic. Stand up if you could, please.
Hello, my name's Erin. I am 39 years old and I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed last year, and if it hadn't been for the expansion of Obamacare that allowed me to get on Medicaid, I'd have no insurance because I was self-employed. And oh God, I hate talking in front of people.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Thank you.
So anyway, so I have multiple sclerosis, which is a very expensive disease. I've been through 3 different medications that have had to change because of the severity of my form. And I'm currently on a med. It's a daily oral med, and each pill alone is $286, and I have to take it daily. So if it wasn't for being able to get on Medicaid, I would have no treatment at all because I wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Okay. Thank you. Other people, talk about, and I know it is not easy, TV cameras there and everything else, but talk about, your experience with the healthcare system. I'm told by my opponents, and I'm told by the media and everybody else sometimes, everybody loves their private health insurance. Everybody loves the health insurance industry. All right, I hear a few no's here. Okay, who wants to say a word on that? Your experience with the healthcare industry or the cost? I see a hand. Is that a hand over there? All right, Misty, you're running from one end to the other. It's part of our disease prevention program. We're going to keep Misty healthy. Okay.
Hi, my name is Bailey Scott, and I'm a mother of 3. And just in dealing with a private insurance company, I feel like it's a full-time job to keep up with, the paperwork that they need. And we're kind of in between jobs right now, and that's like a whole nother issue, just getting the care that myself and my children need. So it's just a full-time job. That's all there is to it. They keep you needing this and needing that and not covering that, and then there's the deductible and the out-of-pocket limit and the out-of-network limit, and I'm ready to be done with all of it.
All right.
I'll pay higher taxes any day for something that's smoother.
All right. And that's another point. I'm sorry, your first name was?
Bailey.
Bailey. All right.
Yep.
She makes a point. In our household and in households all over the country, it is a full-time job just arguing with the insurance companies, trying to get what you thought you were covered. Okay? And by the way, this is not just an issue for consumers like Bailey. Doctors are going crazy as well. All right? Let me give you an example of something and how it works elsewhere. A couple of years ago, I went up to Toronto. We went up there, and they invited us to come into a beautiful hospital, and I talked to a patient, and I talked to the doctors there. Walked into a room with the patient's permission. He had just had very serious surgery. And he said, Bernie, I got to get my feet back on the ground. This is really bad surgery. It's going to take me months to get well again, and that's what I am focusing on. And I have friends in the United States that when they get out of a hospital, they don't just have to focus on getting well. They got to focus on how they're going to pay the bill. That bill in Canada, if you have a heart transplant, anybody know what it is? It's zero. It is zero. People don't go medically bankrupt in Canada. It is zero when you walk into a doctor's office. That is the definition of a democratic, civilized society in terms of health care. All right, other thoughts on health care? Any other thoughts? People's experience with the health care. What about the cost of health care? I see a young man over there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jackson Tuck. I'm a 19-year-old college student from California, and I suffer from hearing impairment. I love my grandparents here, but it is a genetic thing. And I don't know if any of you know of the costs of hearing aids, but I'm looking at something like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 just to be able to hear my professors speak every single day. And under a better plan, I'd be able to afford that, but it's just something that I can't even look at right now. And just for something so basic as hearing, you know what I mean?
How do you do well in school if you can't hear what your professors are saying?
I sit in the front row.
Okay.
But a lot of times people post their things online, but it's really difficult for me.
Okay. All right, and this is a story we hear 100 times. I was just, again, I went up to Canada a couple of weeks ago with folks from Michigan who had diabetes. Anybody here know the difference in the cost of insulin in Canada compared to what it is in the United States? What's the differential? Do you know? It's 10 times. We pay 10 times more for the same exact product across the board than they do across the board. Why is that? Because there is nothing to stop the drug companies today from legally doubling the price of the prescription drugs that you have. You think it's expensive today? Maybe you walk in there tomorrow and it'll be double price and there's nothing, no legislation. So in terms of Medicare for all, we do two things. We're going to lower the cost of prescription drugs by having Medicare negotiate prices. Number two, we are, if necessary, going to be importing medicine from Canada and other countries, which are a lot cheaper. And number three, we're going to do an average of what other countries are paying, and that will be the average here in America. And the result of all of that is that nobody in America on the Medicare for all will pay more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs that they need. A little bit better than you got? You're paying $200 a day. All right. I want to just touch on a few other issues while we're here. President of the United States thinks that climate change is a hoax. Well, I think the president is a hoax, but all right. And the sad truth is, what you already know, is that the scientific community has determined, without any ifs, buts, or maybes, that climate change is real, caused by human activity, already causing devastating problems. And what is even more frightening is what the scientists have told us is if we don't get our act together within the next 12 years, there will be irreparable damage done to our country and the world. In other words, we are fighting for the future of the planet, trying to make sure that our kids and our grandchildren will have a country and a planet that is healthy and is habitable. As President of the United States, I will not only acknowledge the reality and the severity of the climate change crisis, I will reach out to countries all over the world. This is not an American issue. This is a global issue. And I will reach out and suggest to leadership all over the world that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.5 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we could use those resources and come together to fight our common enemy, which is climate change. So, it's hot out here, and I'm sure you have other things to do, but let me just conclude by saying this. I'm here today in Iowa. We're running all over the state to ask for your help to help us win the all-important Iowa caucus. We're asking your help to win the Democratic nomination. We're asking your help to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of America. But I'm asking of you something even more. And I'm the only candidate who's going to come before you and tell you this. And that is that no president, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else, now no matter how honest or well-intentioned he or she may be, can do it alone. And the reason that the message of our campaign is it's not me, it is us, is that the only way we take on the greed and the power of a corporate elite, and I'm talking about Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex, the only way you take on that power is when millions of people stand up and they do say enough is enough, that we need a country and an economy and a government that work for all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And that is what this campaign is about, and we look forward to having you on board that campaign. Thank you so much.